This is Left at the Door, a podcast and vlog where we, a group of friends, get together and talk about things that we have left at the door in order to love, grow, succeed, or survive. So these are our stories and these are your stories. I'm Cassie Yoder.
I'm Jessie Porter.
And guess what? Today we have our friend Darby Poe with us, and we are talking about a pretty heavy topic, and it's perfectionism and the road that you eloquently said this before we started recording, and it was like the beautiful and the messy road of like basically what perfectionism is and brings into a life.
So I am Darby Poe. I work for Moultrie Counseling. It is a 501c3 nonprofit community mental health agency in Sullivan. And during my time there, I have went from kind of being the receptionist to now taking on more of a active role with our clients. I work with them as extra support. I think everybody needs that extra person, so I kind of team up with the clinical team for clients that need extra help. So they'll have their day of therapy and then they'll have time with me, and we work on goals and, you know, life stuff and just encouragement.
Has that always been your plan?
That was not my plan.
What were you doing before this?
I owned a business for 10 years. Always been a creative entrepreneur. Always had an interest in mental health and advocated for that. I guess I just didn't realize that when I stepped into the door at the counseling center that was the place I didn't know I needed. So yeah, it's been very fulfilling, and I knew quickly that that was going to be my sole purpose, was advocating, and not only for community members but for myself as well. And
do you ever feel like when you are in this role that you're in currently now, and you said that you feel like it's like the place you didn't realize that you needed, do you ever think that it's helping you're helping these people, but do you feel like it's helping you probably just as much as it's helping them?
Yeah, I think it's definitely been a pivotal point in my journey, and raised awareness in myself and advocating for myself and taking care of my, wounds that I've carried for a long time and that I didn't really even realize were bothering me, and I work with a team of amazing professionals. And so anytime I'm curious, I have a door to walk through and ask questions and learn more about myself and ways that I can use my story to help other people, which is the whole purpose of my job as a peer support specialist.
Sorry. I always think you're done and then you're not. Say a little more about being an advocate for yourself. What has happened that has led you to understand that's something you needed to take into your own hands?
Well, I think we all have events or life experiences that have impacted us in a certain way. Every behavior, every trigger that we have comes from somewhere. Those characteristics that we have as adults came from somewhere. And that goes along with the perfectionism and everything, and that doesn't just happen, really. And when it taught me about advocating for myself, I think I know that I spend a lot of time focusing on what everybody else needs, and it really wasn't taking myself into consideration enough to really even dive down that rabbit hole.
Well, it's like we don't just one day wake up and realize that we have become perfectionists, because I know I'm in the same boat in a lot of ways as you, Darby. Like there's a lot of similarities, and all of a sudden I was like, okay, there is definitely things from even childhood that have kind of just added on, and then they added on. It's like, it honestly reminds me of a snowman. Like you're rolling constantly through life and you're picking up more and more snow as it goes. And it either becomes this nice ball that then can become a snowman, or it's an avalanche for someone or for many people in your life. It just depends on really what happens and how you handle it personally.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been taking college courses. Of course, I'm in the field, and I know that it is scientifically proven that our subconscious beliefs that we think about ourselves are formed and imprinted before we're age 12. So any kind of negative self-views, that's in us, and we've developed all these coping tools throughout our lives to keep ourselves safe. And when you start unpacking that, it's a beautiful mess.
It really is.
So you guys are self-identified perfectionists. I am not. I am the girl that is done is better than perfect. At least I finished it, get it off my plate, and get back to what I enjoy doing. And I've always been that way. But being best friends with someone who's a perfectionist, I watch these things that are like, she's a really hard worker, she's very diligent, she's detail-oriented. But when you brought up the snowball, you're talking about it getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And in my head, all I'm thinking is, yeah, but eventually you can't pick that up. So all you have is this big base of a snowman and then another big base of a snowman. And if you're not careful, you can't keep building with that.
There's nothing you can do with it once it gets too big.
No, and typically the expectations that we put on ourselves are just our own.
And they're trauma responses.
They are absolutely trauma responses.
And Cassie and I have talked a lot about that, where it's like, well, now that we've done this self-discovery work, you go, oh shit, that's a trauma response. Oh, you know what? Maybe this is not one of my positive attributes. This is a toxic thing I do. But it's a survival mechanism, and it's a trauma response.
Yeah, I mean, our brains are created to keep us safe, and they will do everything to make us feel safe.
And to rationalize the things you're doing to protect yourself.
And in that, we develop really unhealthy coping skills. And that really looks good and neatly packaged on the outside. And I think that was the thing for me for so many years. I was an entrepreneur. I was hustling 70 hours a week, and I didn't have time to process. I thought the things that wounded me, I was fine with, and that I had worked past. And it wasn't until I got into a quieter, I took a job that I was working 8 to 5. I didn't have a business that I was working 24/7, and I had all of this. I was safe. I was safe. And once I kind of settled in and things in my life were quiet and I didn't have to hustle and distract myself, really intense triggers started coming up for me. And I couldn't explain it. It was getting really frustrating. I almost felt like I was sabotaging myself and testing my husband, was he going to get mad?
Yes.
Not because I wanted to, but little things I couldn't take a joke anymore. And I went to my therapist and I was like, what is going on? I feel like I need some serious, therapy right now. I think I need to see a therapist. And she's like, you're safe, Darby. Your subconscious mind knows that you could process this now.
Yep. And your inner child is demanding attention and demanding that you address these issues.
100%. And it just, when you dip down in the inner child rabbit hole. Wowzers.
When I started working on trauma and doing inner child work, I was like, I'm not that was fucked up shit happened when I was a kid. It didn't traumatize me. And then I had someone say, my coach, she said to me, okay, tell me this. How do you feel when something's not finished? How do you feel when your house is messy? And I was like, oh, that's what that is? She's like, yeah, that's not just a personality quirk. That's a trauma response. And the other day, my husband, who is very respectful, we get along great. We don't do passive aggressive bullshit. We communicate really well. He was making the bed and threw my pillows on the floor. And I was like, that was really rude. And he said, what? I said, you threw my pillows on the floor. And he's like, I was getting him out of the way. And I was like, out of the way of me getting in bed? That doesn't even make any sense. So I get really upset. And he was like, oh my God, I thought you were going to sit in bed and make jewelry. So I was getting them out of the way because that's what I had told him I was going to do.
Right.
And he's like, I didn't realize that was going to trigger you. And it was like that word. I said, well, you know why you didn't realize it? Because you didn't grow up with Jeff Hensley, who whenever he's mad, he walks around and slams things and throws things. And it seemed like...
clears things.
Yep. Yeah. And I did that. I sat there and threw everything that... I was like, your dad didn't do that. You don't understand why that's triggering, because lucky for you, which... his childhood shit is a bunch of different things. It's not like there's not stuff. It's different. It's just different. It's not that he doesn't have it. It's just different. And I said, it's because I grew up with this man, the only other man I've ever lived with. That's how he dealt with his anger. Does that seem healthy to you? He goes, no, and that's not what I did. And then he was very much like, wow, I'm really sorry. And I was like, me too. And I sat there and cried, and I was like, what the fuck is wrong with me?
Yeah,
Why am I crying about these pillows?
And it is something so simple that can just
explode out of you.
Yeah, it really does.
Unexpectedly.
And a lot of it's what you said, Darby, about the noise. It's like when you don't have the noise and the hustle and the busy, and you have to sit in it, then all of a sudden things start popping up. And I do think that our society, we keep busy to keep hidden in so many ways.
And that's a really common thing to even say. I'm going to keep myself busy so I don't have to think about XYZ.
Right.
Or, I'm just going to try to stay busy so I don't worry about this, this, and this. Well, maybe you do need to sit down and worry about this, this, and this.
Yeah, because, I mean, mental health is a pandemic right now. You know, I mean, always, but let's just be real, you know.
And we finally have a generation that talks about it.
Yes.
Which is massively new.
Yeah, and
because our parents didn't.
No.
Our parents didn't talk about that.
Mental health is part of health.
Yes.
Like, you can't, just because you're physically well and you're, emotionally stable or you eat well and all that, you're not healthy if your mind is still screwed
it's
up.
all tied together.
It is.
And, when we are in a constant state of, like, fight, flight, freeze, and our body is in constant state of stress, our physical bodies
react to that.
React to that.
And there's that book, The Body Keeps the Score.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I think about that. Definitely read that if you're someone who has a chronic health issue. It's really interesting because it ties into a certain part of your body, and there's always like an emotional cause.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's something that most people stifle, and just keep pushing through. And it's like, it's usually, to me, like your last resort. It's like your body literally jumping out, trying to jump out of it. The reaction is trying to jump out of your body to where it's like, you have not dealt with this for long enough.
And you're going to now.
Now you're going to. Yeah.
And then you can't run from it anymore.
No, you can't. Not at that point. And I think about that from, even the book, like, it talks about even from, like, cancers to pain to migraines. I mean, one of everything that... And I even looked into it because of, like, I've always had infertility issues. And I was like, I want to look into this. And I was, like, reading it, and I was like, welp, this explains a lot.
That tracks.
Yeah, but, for some people, it's woo-woo. For some people, it's like, oh, well, there's a pill to fix this, and there's a pill to fix that, and that's all that needs to happen. And thank God for that. Thank God for the pills that do, But I think that there are so many things that it's like, what if we do this in conjunction?
Yep.
What if you did this, and what if you did therapy? What if you did this and you got into exercise? What if you did this and you did all of those things? Like, but sometimes, and we've talked about this before in other episodes, where our natural reaction is to not, usually it's something that deals with a relationship. It's a relationship with somebody else, or it's the relationship with ourselves. And those are the two things that we never want to deal with. It's like, oh, no. I'm just going to... And I was so guilty of this. I mean, I threw myself and killed myself at CrossFit 6 days a week.
Gross.
Yes, right? Because I didn't want to think, and I didn't want to feel. And I knew that if I got myself to that point of exhaustion, those feelings went away.
Yeah.
But little did I know, okay, well, that doesn't fix that relationship. That doesn't fix that, But it took a lot of that before I finally realized, like, I need to sit and I need to make the noise stop.
Yeah, and I think society wants a quick fix.
Always. I was going to say that. We want the magic pill.
We do want the magic pill. And like I said, there's a time and a place for medications and magic pills. And, but when we take the time to really get to know ourselves, and that itself is a whole process, not a short one. There's no finish line.
No.
And I think that's what a lot of people need to understand is, like, when you go on these, like, soul healing journeys or self-discovery journeys, like, we should always want to be evolving.
Yeah.
We should always want to be growing and knowing more about who we are and what makes us tick and what makes us happy. And,
as long as you're breathing, the journey is still on.
Pains me when people are like, I'm too old to change, or I'm too old for this, or I'm too old to, I'm just set in my ways. Well, Why?
What else are you doing?
I just read that thing about a 89-year-old that became like a doctor in like physics or something like that.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm 36 and my brain doesn't work. How did they do that?
And he just said, he's like, I just decided that, like, why not?
That's Dustin.
And I really was like, after I read that article, I sat with that for a while. And I was like, I pray to God that is my mindset.
Yeah.
That I'm like, there's always one more day. There's always one more day. Like, why not? Why not do this?
I think I'm just always like, I've personally always been very curious. I love gaining new knowledge and learning new skills and learning more about who I am. I mean, I may not have had it all even remotely figured out, but I was still curious.
But the fact that you're curious is a gift in and of itself.
Doing the searching is half the fun.
Yeah. And not just saying, this is...
Well, now I know that.
You know, and I think that there was, you know, I don't even remember where I was, but... conversation that basically stemmed around that of like, you have two different mindsets. You can either say, this is how I am because this is what happened to me.
Evolve or remain.
Yes.
Yep.
Or you say, yeah, this is what happened to me and this is what I've overcome. And it's basically a triumph story of like, yeah, that shit was really, really bad, but here I am.
But look at me.
And you have little eyes that are watching you.
Right. And that was my wake-up call.
Talk to us about that.
I think it was my therapist. She's like, Darby, you're so hard on yourself and you push yourself and you expect so much of yourself. She's like, your daughter's watching you.
Yep.
And I just broke down because I never put those expectations on her.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've never looked at a report card because I don't have to, because she's self like aware and regulates and she's hard enough on herself. And she's like,
she's very much like Jack. Her and Jack are very similar, and I don't know whether it's just because they're of being like only children, so they're like old, but I think they're old souls regardless. Yeah. Even if there would have been siblings. Yeah. Like they would have been this way. But I see so many similarities when like it's not that she parents you, but it's like you just know that there is a level of trust with her of like, you know, she's going to do what needs to be done. And I feel like that with Jack. Yeah, I'm like, he's got this.
Like, I trust, you know, and she knows, like, I trust you to make decisions for yourself. Like, I believe that you can.
Yes.
And so I don't monitor. I mean, my philosophy has always just been, like, I just want you to be a good human. You know, like, just be kind and just be caring. And, like, she is an empath, too. And her awareness blows my mind. But...
how old is she?
She's 15, but you know,
going on 45.
Yeah, I mean, she knows when, like, she knows she's an introvert. Yeah. Like, I like to be social, like, one day of the week.
Can you imagine how valuable that knowledge would have been when you were a kid?
Right? Exactly.
Like, you know what I need right now? It's not that what I really need is like a moment of quiet. It's not that I need a snack. It's not that I need to do whatever. I need a moment.
Just a moment to myself.
She'll say, like, my social battery's on E. And I'm like, most adults can't recognize that. So you're so far ahead of the game.
And we don't have the words.
Right.
Charlie, we had a house full of kids for her birthday. My friend Jen has 6 children. 12, 12, 10, 5, 3, and 1.
Wow.
And they showed up and Charlie vanished. And Dustin texted me and he was like, Charlie's in her bedroom. She's overwhelmed. And I went in there and, you know, our house is very small. Our living room is real little. So to have 8 humans walk into that space is a lot. And to quadruple the amount of children that are now in my house is a lot. So I went in there and she was laying on the floor in her underwear, just looking at the ceiling.
Living the dream.
And in her nice quiet room. And in the rest of the house, they've got Alexa on. It's chaos. And my friend Carla was there going, oh my God, I want more kids. This is so nice. And I love it. I love having a house full. It was her nightmare. I was like, hey sis, what's going on? And she's like, I'm just really nervous. Because that's the word she knows.
Yeah.
And I said, why are you nervous? She said, there's just a lot of people out there. And I was like, well, would you maybe like to meet one friend? She's like, yeah, tell Silas to come back here. Her one friend she already knew. She's like,
she knew
I'll take the one I know.
I know. Exactly.
And so she would like peek her head out, but she didn't have the words to say, Mom, this is overwhelming. It's a little too noisy and I don't know what to do with this many strangers. So it was, I'm nervous. I get it. And
Yeah.
of course, Dustin's heart is exploding. He's like, God, she's me. This is so awful. I was hoping she'd be you.
Oh, this is crazy when they turn into us, isn't it?
Yep.
You're like, oh, how'd this happen?
Yep.
So I guess then what is interesting to me is that we all three, we talked about it before, like our parents didn't really more or less talk about mental health in so many ways. So how do you talk to Bella about it? Like, what does Bella see? Or do you just not talk about it because you just live it?
I mean, we talk about all the time.
Okay.
I'm like, and I told her, you know, I'm like, I think there's a lack of awareness and in school. You know, it's not a, you know, I'm quizzing her all the time. Like, did they talk about mental health today? No, you know.
Do you like teach her the signs so she can see
100%.
other kids?
100%. I'm like, these are things that you need to watch out for. I mean,
She's a little light worker walking around high school.
I said, if you see something on social media, like with somebody you know that just doesn't feel right to you, you're going to know. And, or if they just don't seem like they're having a good time or they're in a bad place, like just drop a message. Hey, I saw your video. Like, just want you to know I'm thinking about you. It's simple. You know, it's just simple connection that so many people need, kids included. And I work at an agency in my hometown with kids I see all the time and people that I see all the time. And I think most people are unaware of the level of, or the amount of people hurting.
Yeah.
And I think working there has been just such a gift for me because we're all human, and realizing that, you know, our therapists are human and we all have stories, and it's just normal to talk about. And I have very real conversations with her about her mental health, my mental health. I mean, I don't go into like detail, but
Right, where it's like age appropriate.
age appropriate conversation, which I think as parents we should all be having.
Yeah.
You know, and give them labels like, this is what anxiety feels like. Are you really, really sad and you just can't explain it? Like, you know, just, we all need a validating, neutral party to talk to, and that can come as a therapist or a peer support specialist or a coach or just somebody outside of your circle that might have a different perspective to help you process things.
Well, it's really important, I think, that there was this belief system, and I think that still exists today. There's a shift, but there's that belief system that your partner or your spouse or your boyfriend or your girlfriend or whatever should be your end-all be-all of everything.
Yeah, or a parent.
Or your parent.
Or your best friend.
Yeah.
She's my best friend. I can tell her anything.
Yeah. And that's heavy.
It is.
That's really heavy for that person. And it also, and I know we've talked about this before on other episodes, like where Jesse and I have talked about the like lead balloon thing of like, I have a lead balloon. Can I give it to you? Are you at a space that I can like dump this on you more or less? But there is a lot of really toxic relationships and friendships and marriages that are not like that. It is, the expectation is, that is my spouse. That's what you signed up for.
Yep, they owe it to me.
They owe it to me. And then when they don't get the response or the reaction or the empathy, then they're so hurt. And I think that we also have to speak to that is not what marriage is. That's not what friendships are either. Yes, there's a level of it, of that support system, of course.
Well, and if you do dump on them and they don't understand, then you're resentful.
Yep.
You know, I have a lot of feelings. I mean, when I met my husband, I was very honest about the trauma that I had been through, an emotionally abusive marriage that I went through as well, and what, you know, kind of how I wanted my life to look after that. You know, if I was going to fall in love again, like it's not going to be that. Right. And so he's aware of the things that I've been through, and I've tried to explain to him, you know, why I get triggered out of the blue, even though I think I've fixed it. Yes. But I don't know, it's not fair to him to just expect him to understand or expect him to hear it all the time. And
when you come into a relationship though, and you're willing to say like, hey, here's all my shit, is this cool? Do you wish to proceed? And they say yes, then that's different. It's when you get into a relationship And then all of these things start bubbling out, and your partner's like, what is this? I was not ready for that. And when you're in a healthy relationship, you genuinely want to give the person you love the best of yourself.
Right.
When you're in a good, healthy headspace.
And if you're a perfectionist.
And if you're
you want to be the perfect version of yourself.
See, I'm not a perfectionist, but I don't want to just give my husband the broken, the tired. I don't want him to get the leftovers. Now, if I have to choose, I'm giving it to my kids, and he'll get what's left over. But I don't want my leftovers to be total trash, you know?
Exactly. And I think, being honest about that, and if we're not self-nurturing and taking care of ourselves, we can't show up for you. And I mean, I even talked to my daughter about that. I've started a practice of when everybody's home and it's been busy, I'll go into my bedroom at 9:30, and I'm just gonna write, I'm gonna read, I'm gonna hang out, have some quiet time, and
be a better mom tomorrow.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I'm the owner of Bad Love Creative Co. I'm a photographer that services both Central Illinois and Chicago areas. This year has been incredibly difficult for me. I've had lots of cancellations due to shutdown. Prairie Commons Business Collective has helped me bring awareness to my clients. The marketing has let people know that I'm still here and I'm taking clients. I'm taking social distancing measures, and that is how my photo shoots go. Prairie Commons Business Collective has really helped get more clients and to reach new people. One of the things I love most about Prairie Commons Business Collective is that there's a place for everybody, which is something I value most. It's a community of people of all business types. So whether you're a crafter or a photographer like me, or even a furniture maker, there's a place for you.
May your day be filled with giggles. The place to come for cards and gifts. Personalized just for you. Come and try our tasty treats. They will leave you giggling too. Oh, the brightest spot on Merchant Street will leave you happy and complete. May your day be filled with giggles.
Yeah, I think it's really all about vulnerability. It really is. And gosh, it's so funny because I've always felt called to share my story and considered myself a pretty open book. If you ask me, I will tell you. I don't have anything to hide. And if I don't want to share all of my story, I don't have to. And I think as humans, that's, we have that right. But
and that's getting to somewhere where you don't have shame about the things that you've gone through too.
Right. I mean, because we all have shame. All of things that we don't want to talk about, and just getting honest about that, or if something's painful for you or you're feeling a certain way, allowing yourself to sit in it. Like you were talking earlier, okay, where does this perfectionism come from? Where does this hypervigilance come from? Okay, well, I can look back at when I was a child and see where that came from and why I was that way and why to make everybody happy. And then I had a marriage that just further instilled and imprinted that on me. So it's a lot to unpack, 30 some years.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Like how you dodge the actual number there,
Yeah,
Darby.
39 Friday. So yeah.
Nice.
So I don't know.
I also think that it speaks to one of the things that I always think about when it comes to unpacking this stuff is you guys know my parents, and so many people who know me know my parents, and they're phenomenal human beings, and I got very lucky, but at the end of the day, sometimes I think, this is my assumption, I'd love to know if this is, but knowing them, I think this is what it is. I think sometimes when I do shadow work or I start unpacking things, they take it as well, did we do something wrong? That you went down this avenue of, a very different spirituality. And to me, we're still Catholic. That has nothing to do with religion at all.
The two aren't mutually exclusive.
Yes.
No.
I can like crystals and Praise Jesus on Saturday nights.
There you go, exactly. And also want to be the best version of myself.
Yeah,
and also want to stop putting work in place of life. And I want, so those are things that I'm like, I don't know. It has nothing to do with them. And I think that is the overall topic that so many parents and partners can't get past.
They take it so personal.
Yes. They think if you're unpacking this, it's because of me. It's like, did I do this to you?
Did I fail to protect you from something? Yeah,
Yes.
probably, but that's the human condition.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we always tend to forget that, like, I tell that to Jack as often as I can. I'm like, I need you to know that my life is not perfect. I give you very age-appropriate things. You know probably a lot more than the average 12-year-old because you're an empath and you see and you feel everything.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, I don't have my shit figured out, Jack.
So I'm going to fuck you up in special ways.
I just told him, I said, there is going to be things that, like, so I told him, I said, I want us to talk about those things now. And when you have questions or you're like, why are you doing this? Or why did you do this?
Yeah.
I want you to ask now and when you're thinking about it, as opposed to waiting till your 30s and then being like,
You did this thing when I was 12 and it totally screwed me up.
yes, and I still think about it to this day.
Yeah.
As opposed to us talking about it when he's 10, 11, 12, whatever age it is, and being like, oh, okay, I can process this now, and now I won't think about it for the next 2 decades.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, I mean, as much of a perfectionist, like, workaholic as I am, I've always been like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm not perfect. And I can admit that to her.
Yeah.
But I mean, even my therapist telling me, like, she's watching you.
You say you're on this journey. You've been doing shadow work. Talk to me a little bit about any generational trauma experiences that you feel like you're sort of working on and unpacking.
Oh, yeah. I mean, generational trauma is a very real thing. And
Can you define it for maybe the listeners who are not familiar with that term?
Generational trauma is essentially continually passing down the traumas, like, from your parents, or they got traumas from their grandparents, or
Like, my mom never told me she loved me, so I'm not going to tell my kids
Yes.
that I love them, and then they're not going to know how to verbalize that.
Yep.
That is not my story, by
Yeah.
the way.
Right.
But
Right.
example.
No, that's a great example. I mean, it's as simple as that.
And it could be something passive, too. Sometimes we think about those generational traumas as, like, being really big, like abuse in your face, slamming doors, my family yelled, blah, but that's not always the case.
No.
Sometimes it is very passive aggressive and
subtle.
quiet.
Yeah.
Subtle and
like
quiet.
Someone being a functional alcoholic. Oh, they're functional.
Right.
My mom still worked and she still took care of us,
Yes.
and things like that.
So that's what I want listeners to know, is it's like it can be big in your face and
Yep.
it can be quiet and silent, just creep in.
Yeah, and I think I need to make a point to say, too, that trauma is trauma.
Yep.
There's no spectrum. I mean, I think a lot of people don't talk about things because they're like, well, I didn't have it as bad as so-and-so.
Oh, yeah.
Or
At
it
least
wasn't
I
really
wasn't.
trauma.
Yeah.
But trauma is just any experience that has impacted your life and continues to impact your life in a negative way. And
The episode we did with my sister, we talked a lot about trauma, and it was enlightening to me. She said a trauma is anything that when it's over you go, what the fuck was that? That was unexpected. It was unpleasant, and I'm confused about what just went on. So anything, like you said, it doesn't, just because someone else has it worse doesn't mean that you shouldn't address the root of yours.
yeah, and it doesn't make it any less valid.
No, exactly.
Or from a sibling standpoint, like all three of us we all have siblings.
Yeah.
So maybe something didn't affect your brother, but it affected you. Or maybe
Right.
something didn't affect my brother or sister, but I was like, meh, So
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that everyone, it's not an inclusive feeling.
No, it
No.
isn't.
Yeah.
And it definitely can be different in sibling relationships, and I know that from a personal perspective. We, being raised in the same house, but having a very different experience.
Exactly.
Yep.
And
That's why I say, we have the same parents, but we had very different childhoods.
And different perspectives, and I mean, some people might not be affected at all and live
that's
their
true,
life
too.
without any sort of lingering.
And that's
shit.
how I thought I was. I was
Yeah.
like, I escaped unscathed. And then when you start looking, you're like, oh, maybe not though.
Yeah.
You know, but if you don't look, you won't find it.
Right. And then going back to what you said earlier, you know, we kind of want, like, our ego wants to be like, oh, you know, no, we have to actually embrace our dark side as much as we do
Yeah.
our light. And I think that's really important. Like, knowing, I don't like the term toxic trait because I think all our traits come from somewhere.
Yeah.
But essentially, you know what I mean? Like, our behaviors that aren't very
Some helpful, productive.
productive or healthy, you know, we have to take a look at that and be like, why am I doing this, though?
Yeah. I feel like listeners are going, well, I don't want to do shadow work. I feel like I'm okay. I just want to
Yes.
stick with where I'm at. But talk a little bit about the good that comes from like cracking open all that painful stuff.
Well, I mean, a couple things. One, don't do it until you're ready.
Yeah.
Don't be rushed. And I think it's important to say that not every avenue of healing works for everyone.
Correct.
You have to find what works for you.
Yep.
You know, whether that be a therapist or a coach or, you know, meditation, mindfulness, you know, journaling. Just use the tools that work for you. Don't try to force something that doesn't feel authentic. Writing has been very therapeutic for me, so that's kind of been my outlet recently, diving back into writing and trying to use my painful experiences with purpose.
Well, and I think sometimes that people assume that the only way to do this and to get through this is to just like head first into therapy. Well, that's not the case. There is such a spectrum of things that you can do to become more self-aware. And that's really what it comes down to is like, are you asking yourself the hard questions? And it's really difficult. We all do it. We all pretend. We all are like, hey, there's these things that I like know that I'm not dealing with, or I'm purposefully just kind of, I'm going to push them under the rug, or you push it down the road. It's almost like I'll deal with you just a little bit.
Time.
And we have time, yes. And so I think that there is like this line between make sure that you're ready for it, but also you have to start at some point.
Yep.
Because otherwise you're doing your children no justice by continually living a lie and pretending. And you think they don't notice. They don't notice me XYZ. They don't notice me drinking wine every night. They don't notice me just
Crying on the toilet.
Yes. They don't notice me throwing myself into work. They don't notice me not speaking to their father every single night. Like, people think that they're so good at faking it.
But here's the other
They're
thing.
not.
Yeah.
And it's breaking people's hearts by not doing it and being
Yes.
honest.
And they're doing it for someone else. They're going, I'm still doing a good job for my kids. I'm still doing a good job at work. But you as an individual are worth taking the time and doing that inner work. You deserve to be having a better life. You deserve to be living as your higher self. You deserve that. On the topic of therapy, if you don't have a connection with one person, try another one.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
shop around.
that's one thing that people are like, oh, I didn't like her, didn't do it. But, and I had that experience less than a year ago. I met with a new counselor. My OB recommended it because I have PMDD. She's like, I think you should talk to a counselor. And I was like, I don't think so, but okay. And we met, and I was very upfront. I was like, we aren't clicking.
Yeah.
And they appreciate that.
She was like, well, if this isn't going to work for you, then it's not worth it for me either. So let me know if you want a referral for someone else, or if this just isn't the right time for you. And it was like, peace out. And that was fine. And I felt very good about not, because I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. Oh, this is not what I want to do. I don't talk to, like, this is not for me right now. And then I met her and I was like, oh, she's definitely not for me. And that's okay. I'm sure she helps lots of people.
Right. And that is, I hear a lot of that sometimes. Well, I tried it once and I didn't like it.
I'm not supposed to do therapy. I don't believe that.
No.
I believe she wasn't the right person at the right time for me. Yeah.
Right. And part of what I do when new people come in, I try to get enough information from them that I can match them up with someone I think is going to be a good fit.
Yeah.
And I'm upfront about it. I'm like, I'm going to try to play matchmaker, but you may be better off with someone else. But this is where we're going to start. And just knowing that, I know that I would probably be a real picky pain in the ass at this point about, looking for a therapist because, well, I work in it and I have expectations.
And it's an intimate relationship. You should be picky.
And you're going in there spilling your guts and you're the shit you've never told anyone.
Yeah.
You got to have a connection.
And this goes back to when we were talking about the whole perfectionist side of things. When I'm trying to think. So 6 years ago, during this time of year, it was the first time that I had, about 6 years ago, that I had ever gone to therapy. And it was right after my friend Lori had completed suicide. And I had gone back and forth as to because at that point I had never gone. I had friends that went and it seemed to help them. And I thought to myself, if I can just maybe sort through all these feelings to be a better version of myself, like for Jack and for Lori's kids, and just be able to kind of be a better foundation, maybe that would help. But I remember going in there and I still was perfectionist Cassie. And so I would talk to her and I was like, this is what's going on and it's fine. And this and
I'm handling it. I'm killing it at life.
So well. I'm doing so good.
I don't know what I'm doing here.
Right, And it took maybe 2 or 3 sessions and I, was scratching the surface on this and these feelings and I had some real strong opinions about how everything happened in regards to that situation. And I remember one time getting to my car, so just scratching the surface, sprinkling some glitter on it and walking out and being like, I did it,
Nailed it.
I nailed it. Exactly. And, because I'm everything I do well, work is great and blah, blah, blah. And I get into my car and I just start bawling. And it was just that aha moment of if I'm not going to be honest in there, the one place that it can't go anywhere else, then what am I doing it for?
Yep.
And so that shifted my mindset entirely. And I try to say that to friends, family, coworkers, people that are in that boat that are I think I need therapy. Who should I go to? Whatever the case is, or all this is going on my plate right now and I don't know how to sort through it. And I make that recommendation of maybe you should talk to somebody. But I always say that. I'm you have, if my one and only tip is that it's you can go into it fully knowing that this is the one place you don't have to be that things don't have to be perfect.
Yeah. And we all have our own shit.
Yes.
Including your therapist.
Oh yeah.
And
they're people too.
I think that when I started therapy, it was when I was going through a divorce and was very wounded, very, very wounded. And I was curious and I had never gone, and I just happened to run into a friend that works there. And I was like, so tell me about therapy.
Not that I need
thinking about
it,
maybe I should probably try it. And she's like, oh my gosh, yeah, everybody needs somebody to talk to. And I was like, well, I probably won't tell them anything, but I might come in.
Right, you're going to control the conversation.
Yeah, 100%.
And because that's what we do as perfectionists.
So I went in and I had the best experience and was so validated. And we didn't dive into anything deep. It was just basically addressing my immediate wounds and validating me that yes, that was abuse.
Yeah.
You're okay. This isn't, I just needed that validation. And it was so many simple sentences that just was well, damn, why didn't I think of that? You're
I
right.
like this.
And it was such a great experience. And then when that's kind of led me to working there. And since then, I had a therapist that was straight up with me, which I need. I am an internalizer. I have a lot of feelings, all of them, times 10. And I don't want to dump it on my husband.
Yeah.
And I remember our first session, she was like, so tell me this. Do you think you're a hot mess? And I was like, well, no. I've got my shit together.
Clearly, look at me. I'm so put together.
You work with me.
You know what I'm
see
like.
the level of organization this office has right now?
Yeah.
It's me, And then, I don't know, the next one, I walked into a room crying and I was like, actually, I am a hot mess. I think I have a lot to talk about. You know, and she's just like, I know. I know.
Yes.
You know, that was cute.
I spotted you.
That was super cute that you thought I didn't know. You know, and it was just great. And I felt safe to do that. And, you know, I can't work with her all the time because she is my coworker, but she's my safe person. And she knows all of my secrets.
You're
And
having an extra hot, messy day.
yeah.
She takes care of you.
I mean, she can look at me and she'd be like, do you need to come in and shut the door? And I was like, yeah.
I do.
I need to process this really quick.
This has been really insightful, and I think a lot of the things we talked about tonight or today, whatever time of day you're listening to this, are helpful and shedding some light on mental health and giving people some permission to explore their own. If you have questions or experiences you want to share with us, we want to hear about it. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all the things, and we're going to drop some information and resources for those of you that are local and for people to connect online. So thank you so much again for coming. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
No problem.
been
This
great.
has been Left at the Door.